Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Jeffery Combs, good to be here with you on a Tuesday, and we have the Tuesday More Heart Than Mind, More Heart Than Talent, that was the original name, More Heart Than Talent Mindset live call, that was the live conference call, and today it is a Facebook Live. So it's good to be here with you. It would be awesome to see a few of you come in here today and watch the content. Aaron Elizabeth, good to have you here on Tuesday, and I believe you're in Brickell, Florida. For those of you who don't know where I reside in Stockton, California, the beautiful San Joaquin Valley. I live about 5 hours north of Los Angeles, 2 hours or 1 hour and 15 minutes east of San Francisco. Some of you have been to my home here. I want a big shout out to Josh Waxman. Josh Waxman and I coached Sunday, and he covered this book. We covered some content in this book. Now, this is a David Icke book. He wrote this in 2001. I had not read this book, even though I've owned it. And Josh told me to read The Nature of the Quest. So, Jared, if you have this book, The Nature of the Quest is absolutely top-tier content. I believe I saw Josh pop on here, so all of his teammates are here. Nick Horner, good to see you. The Nature of the Quest, right here. The eye of the eye, meaning like your eye, the eye inside of that eye that knows the truth. So for those of you who are truth seekers, this book is definitely an asset for you, and I highly recommend it right here, The Eye of the Eye. So I feel you, Josh. I was reading the Quest, so right here, The Nature of the Quest. I was up at 4 o'clock this morning reading this, and in this content, it's actually absolutely pertinent to the content I'm covering today, because David Hawkins, the author right here, he breaks down how consciousness became calibrated, how it became taken into the science of calibration, so how to understand how we emanate, how we transmute our feelings, which is a byproduct of who and what we attract. If you keep dating narcissistic men and women, there's unresolved issues that are not addressed. If you keep finding yourself in unfulfilling relationships, unfulfilled careers and or businesses, if your boss, your manager, your upline, your downline, your crossline, your bottom line, if you continue to attract people that you feel less than or in conflict with, or any multitude of situations, it's a direct reflection of the energy that you are emanating, transmuting, telepathically sending a message. So once again, this is very, very deep content, and it requires a lot of studying. It's a home study course. The book is. It's not a book you read cover to cover. It's a book you really take your time with, and it will really assist you to understand what my topic is a mind-body connection. I first heard the term in 1989 as I was reading Louise Hay, not Hayes, Louise Hay book, You Can Heal Your Body. And I was being introduced to naturopathic healing, homeopathy, natural remedies, and I came across muscle testing. And Hawkins mentions muscle testing as how between 1965 and 1985, muscle testing became one way to measure energy. And so if you're emanating at a very high emotional vibration, if you're in love, and if you're in joy, if you're in bliss, there's a high probability that you're the extreme law of the few, that you're in 4% of America or the world emanates from the love of life. And that means you're a people person, not a people pleaser, but you're a people person. And you're able to adapt and adjust, and you'll find yourself in conflict very infrequently. And so that brings to the foundation of power, because power doesn't have to be fed. Force has to constantly be fed. And if you're in force, your body is in resistance. Your body is in procrastination, avoidance. And then if you're in that state of dis-ease, your body will respond to the fight or flight that you were in, and you'll attract people and situations to fulfill your feelings but it will also create a breakdown of the body. This is why you have hip pain, or you have below your hip on the left side of your back behind on your cheek, you'll have hip pain, but that's not really your hip, that's your lumbar. And so there's a mind-body connection to that. Oftentimes it's a sexual issue, it's a mother issue, it's the opposite sex issue, it's a conflict issue, and the body is reacting to the stimulus of that. So 3 and 4 in the lower lumbar will often subluxate, go out of place. Now, it can just as easily go back in place at times without a chiropractic adjustment by mastering the emotions and the skill of letting go. And if you are letting go, then you are if you're in an always letting go lifestyle, if you're in a letting go mindset, if you're always letting go, then you're letting go of cause and effect. You're letting go of feelings. You're letting go of being right. You're letting go of being overwhelmed. You're letting go of the feelings that keep you recreating the same situation. If you're always letting go, it means you're in a let go reflex, and then it becomes easy and effortless to let go because you no longer require being right. If you live in your head, if you're a processor, if you're an analyzer, if you're a thinker, if you're a mathematician, if you're an engineer, if you're very left brain, if you live only in your left brain, then you're not in any homeopathic healing. You're not in any emotional energy that's going to be conducive to living a good life, because typically what happens is when you're strictly left brain, then you're living in the duality of right, wrong, black, white, good and bad. You're not accessing any higher consciousness. You're accessing your intelligence, but not your emotional intelligence. And in the mind-body connections, you'll be very stiff and rigid, which will create neck pain, back pain, headaches, migraines, and then clenching on the non-dominant side of your body. So if you're right-handed, your left side of your jaw, your jaw, your cheek, you're going to grind at night. You're going to clench at night, which then subluxates C1 and C2, which then creates a migraine headache. And if you have these, there's remedies that do not have to be medical. What you're letting go of is the anxiety that you grew up in, the repressed and suppressed feelings, the worry about the future that hasn't happened, the conflict you keep creating with yourself and others, the relationships that you sabotage, or the people who sabotage your relationships. You're letting go of the conflict that you grew up in as a child, the overwhelmed worry in the unpredictable house that you grew up in with narcissistic parents, adult child of alcoholic addicts. If you grew up in any of this situation, it's a recipe to attract your reality, other like-minded addicts, to fulfill your feelings of not being good enough. As you begin to grasp, understand, be present, use both sides of your brain. You're using your right brain, your left brain. Your amygdala will begin to come back into its normal size. The prefrontal cortex, you'll be able to discern and decide. Your hippocampus, your memory will improve because you're letting go of the brain fog that you held on to that was created in childhood, teenage years, possibly 20s, concussions and other situations, bodily injuries that create the feelings that you feel today. As you have a better understanding and grasp, as understand is knowing, as you begin to know and you let go of, I don't know, I don't understand. This kinda is, this I'm kinda in, but I'm really kinda out. As you let go of being uncertain, and as you begin to let go of your doubt, then you're no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. If you're an unloved child, that'll show up in your mind-body. It'll show up in different areas of your body that will break down. Oftentimes in the gut, or in the prostate, or in the female organs, because if you grow up in an inflamed family environment, there are going to be organs in your body that are going to be inflamed. Oftentimes the gut, irritable bowel syndrome, yeast infections, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial organisms, a multitude of situations that create gut issues because you can't digest it, you can't figure it out, you're holding on to it. These are mind-body connections that shape the feelings. So for me, right here, C1 and C2, for years would subluxate. After becoming sober, not not while I was an addict, after sobriety, without the shot of courage, scotch and vodka, my drinks, drugs of choice, I began to develop migraine headaches. I was putting pressure on myself. That pressure on myself would show up in my upper cervical, which bulging disc and other situations. As fate would have, I got into a car wreck, got whiplash, which then expedites the problem and makes the problem the problem. And so it took me 6 years to let go of the mind-body connection to the events that shaped the feelings of an unwanted accidental child. As you have a better understanding of why you do what you do, then you are no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. If you have a parent or parents who you're never good enough and you score 26 points, but you didn't score 34, or once upon a time I had a 24-point first half and I finished with 28 points because I got taken out near the end of the third quarter. The school record at the time was 38 points. And I mean, I was within earshot of that. And there was a whole reason that happened that ended up following me throughout much of my life. And so my athletic career, even though I was honorable mention All-State in 3 different sports, I never got to focus on one sport. So even though I was an exceptional athlete, I was never good enough. So when you're never good enough, you'll carry that throughout your life. It'll show up in mind-body connections, because if you're never good enough, it's disappointment, frustration, resentment. You're in the anger family. Then you go to being pissed off, which is now inflammation of the bladder and the prostate. And then your prostate swells if you're a man. And the medical community tells you have BPH and there's no cure for it. And we want to take you under the knife and all these other situations that you're learning to understand that are not sometimes in our best interest. Josh says, I am letting go of the pressure that I put on myself to succeed and prove myself to others. That is very great transparency and honesty. Feel free to post what you are seeking to let go of today. Feel free to step into your power here this afternoon. And I commend all of you who have the courage to be sales professionals, entrepreneurs, insurance agents, brokers, direct sales, network marketers, real estate professionals, influencers, affluencers, coaches, health professionals. Joe Casper is on today's line. He's a multi-athlete. I've known Joe since 2002. I met Joe back in the Buffalo, Rochester era. I was Joe's coach. He's the author of the highly inspiring book, Fire Your Diet. I had the privilege of endorsing Joe from the stage on multiple occasions, and Joe understands where I'm coming from. He's my brother from another mother. He's also a developer of his own wellness products. So he develops his own products. And if you want to reach out to him, feel free to reach out to him. Joe, Nick Horner, good to see you. Jared, good to see you. Always good to see all of you and Josh's team. I'm deeply honored that you are here this afternoon. So cause and effect. So if you're in the effect, if you find yourself, no one is buying from you. Well, the reason is, the mind-body connection is no one's buying from you. Maybe not today, but if it's consistent, no one is buying from you because you're addicted to disappointment. And so if no one's buying, then this fulfills the neurochemical craving to be disappointed, and then that becomes your payoff. Or if you get all these people to the finish line and it falls through, many people that we encounter are pathological liars. I showed up for a call at 9 o'clock last Friday, and the person wasn't there, then sent me a message, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm sick. Can we get together next week? Well, what does that mean? It means next, never. So I'm 67 years old. I still encounter pathological liars, overcommitters, over-obligators, people pleasers, and people who can't commit and or decide. And if I get upset, if I get angry, then this can affect my prostate because it will swell, or any other organ or situation that can happen in the body, subluxation, neck, back, lumbar. Multiple situations can happen in a mind-body connection. The root of the cause are the events that shape the feelings. As you have a better understanding as an objective observer rather than a participant, if you're participating in your own anxiety, fear, and doubt, then you will fulfill the neurochemical craving to create a payoff. And when you begin to let go, it's amazing that people begin to show up. You can't really explain that or understand it until you've experienced it. That's the parking space. Someone reaches out to you and buys 3 coaching packages in one phone call, like happened to me last week. If it happened to me, it can definitely happen to you. Casey said she's letting go of her addiction to being disappointed. So there are many of you posting here, I am letting go of all external validation. That is Nick Horner. Thank you very much. Feel free to post what you are committed to letting go of, so that you're not finding yourself starting over again. Starting over is the neurochemical craving to be at rock bottom so you can go back to the top and do it all over again. And when you say no longer require that experience, then you're not going to be the experience to be in a mind-body connection, to be disappointed, which then becomes the payoff. The events that shape the feelings often are repressed feelings that we selectively choose to forget because of the trauma associated with the event. So sexual abuse, physical abuse, shame, embarrassment, wrong side of the tracks, embarrassing father, multitude of situations, and we choose to hide, bury these feelings in shame, which becomes repressed feelings, and in any recovery process, if it's called denial. And many people live in denial and then tell stories that I had a really good childhood, I had great parents, my father had a heart of gold. I once had a client tell me his father had a heart of gold after he'd stolen like $85,000 from him. And I pointed this out to him and he was like, Shazam, I understand. So this is what many people do, is they lie about their own childhood to cover up the pain that they're still holding on to, of the repressed feelings that keep them not good enough. And if you're dating and you continue to attract men and or women, however you date, if you're a woman dating men or the other way around, if you continue to attract emotionally unavailable men and or women, so if this is you want to look at how that ties into the events that shape your feelings. Because what it leads to is disappointment, frustration, overwhelmed feelings, resentment, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, a multitude of feelings that can lead to weight gain, weight that stays on your body, areas of your body that won't let go, gut issues, gut pain, a gut that swells and doesn't go down, a multitude of situations that will keep you in fight or flight. Fight or flight is the autonomic reaction to the stimulus. The key to letting go is to be able to observe fight or flight and be in command of fight or flight rather than being out of control in fight or flight. Out of control in fight or flight leads to procrastination, avoidance, last-minute performance. If you have performance anxiety, it's a direct reflection of being criticized, critiqued, chewed out, singled out, traumatized, usually by a narcissist who would confuse you by being charming and being vicious. And if you come from one of these parents or two of these parents, it can be very confusing, but especially overwhelming. And then you hide in your brilliance, hide in your pain, hide in the shame, and then bring out the resentment. And then there's envy that's also a part of it, because when you see other people succeeding, you're clapping, silently angry that you're not getting the rewards and recognition that other people, and this can lead to stuffed feelings that leads to alcohol consumption, food consumption, medications, chugging NyQuil in the closet, a multitude of situations. I've done all these things, be the silent, envious person of other people's successes. While I say, oh, good job, dude, and while silently I'm brooding and pouting because I'm not getting a fair shake. Why is that? Well, I absolutely sabotaged my freshman, sophomore years of basketball and junior college basketball by brooding, pouting, being sensitive and defensive, blaming my coach, Walt Stanton, for my own lack and willingness to pay the price, to rise the occasion and excel in the talent that I was born with. It was easier for me at that point to sit on the bench, smoke pot, get high before practices. This is in the 70s, but back in the day. So in this context, being honest, being rigorously honest, letting go. being able to be the observer, not the participant, stepping into willingness, and willingness is where honesty begins. Acceptance and willingness is the gateway to truth, which is honesty. And as you become honest with yourself, now you can begin the healing process. You can't possibly heal when you're in denial. You can't put it in the glass. It doesn't fit the blender. It doesn't create the result you're seeking. You have to let go of the duality and be in the power of letting go. And the mastery of letting go is a long-term skill, mastered by being able to observe and then separate feelings from events that shape them. A longer breath cycle, being open and receptive, rather than letting go of feeling criticized and singled out, letting go of conflict, letting go of brooding and pouting, being able to be present, being able to have clearer boundaries with people, not singling other people out to make them wrong, not being in conflict, a multitude of situations that will allow you to learn the skill of letting go. Once again, letting go is the separation between the feelings and the events that shape them, creating healthy boundaries that you're comfortable with, and then living in power, which does not require any outside influence. In power, you're at peace because your peace is your power. In peace, you're not consuming shiny objects. You don't require attention. You don't require recognition because you are good enough. And when you are good enough, you're not seeking any outside influence because the influence that you're in is in a surrender influence to God and being your best self in the same energy at one time, which then improves your ability to attract because that becomes attractive to people because you're not coming from ego, you're in humility. And in that humility, you're so humble that you can't be humiliated because you're in your power. Power requires no outside conflict, outside influence, because it's the source of its own source. My name is Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. If you're on today's call and you would like to speak to me about my one-on-one coaching, if you're a former client, existing client that would like to add on to your coaching, or a first-time viewer or watcher of my content, feel free to reach out to me and request a free 20-minute coaching session. Breathe, release, and let go. You have an outstanding afternoon.